In March 2010, a mysterious pulsating light floated over Cleveland, Ohio for 11 consecutive nights.
We're having a sighting right now over the lake. I'm gonna say 270 degrees south. There are two objects. One is coming up from the left. These are extremely close to each other. There's absolutely no way these are planes. Right now, what's happening is the initial object that came out, it's sitting there, it's hovering, it's getting extremely bright, it's illuminating different colors, and this second object appeared from, I'm gonna say, the top left of it, and now it's looks like it's moving around it. Wow, they completely just switched spots. Oh my God, this is beautiful. It knows we're watching, it knows we're watching.
The Cleveland sighting is one of thousands reported each year. And while many are proved to be false alarms, others are not so easily discredited.
Right below it. Big bright white flash just occurred.
In 1991, Britain's Ministry of Defense assigned author and journalist Nick Pope to track the hundreds of sightings reported over England, Scotland, and Wales every year.
The Ministry of Defense has been looking at the UFO issue since the 1950s, and the whole reason for looking at these UFO sightings is not necessarily because the department corporately believes in extraterrestrial visitation. It's more to do with keeping a watchful eye on any unusual activity in British airspace. Clearly, if there's something there that's a little bit out of the ordinary, we want to know about it. My beliefs when I was given this job were, I think, what on earth have I let myself in for here? I had no particular knowledge or interest in the UFO phenomenon, certainly no belief in anything unusual. But the more I looked back through the archive of old files, and the more I began to investigate the ones that were being reported to me on a daily basis, I began to change my mind and realize that some of these UFO sightings couldn't be explained in conventional terms.
It's definitely moving.
Many of the most intriguing cases Pope researched involved eyewitness reports from pilots, police, and military officers, while others featured classified radar, video, or photographic evidence.
One case that was a particular turning point for me was the so-called Cosford incident. Now, Cosford is a military base in the United Kingdom, and on the particular night in question, which was 30th of March 1993, there was a wave of sightings over a period of about 6 hours, and there were many police and military witnesses, and two Air Force bases, Cosford and Shawbury, were directly overflown by a vast triangular-shaped craft. Now, the meteorological officer at one of these bases described this to me as the size of a jumbo jet, hovering or moving very, very slowly, and then accelerating away to the horizon at incredible speed. He said many times faster than a military jet. And this was a man with 8 years' experience in the Air Force.
This sighting was thoroughly investigated, not only by private UFO investigators, but also by the British government, who were unable to explain all of the sightings reported during this incident.
Another intriguing British UFO sighting took place in December 1980. U.S. Air Force personnel stationed in Suffolk, England, reported seeing a brilliantly illuminated spaceship that landed in Rendlesham Forest on 2 consecutive nights.
It's coming this way. It's definitely coming this way. This is weird.
What made this case particularly unusual is that this was not vague lights in the sky. This was a landed metallic craft that some of the witnesses claimed they got so close to they could actually touch the side of it. One witness saw strange symbols on the hull, which he likened to Egyptian hieroglyphs. He made a sketch of this in his police notebook and took some photos, though he was subsequently told they didn't come out. The Ministry of Defense looked at this And the Defense Intelligence staff assessed radiation readings that had been taken at the landing site as being significantly higher than background. And that's a direct quote from the government's own assessment.
The British government generated a massive file of information about this sighting report. But at this date, it's very unlikely that the actual truth about this sighting will ever be known.
Baltimore, Maryland, November 9th, 2018. Thousands gather at the Baltimore Convention Center for Alien Con, a 3-day event dedicated to exploring the possibility that life not only exists on other planets, but that intelligent beings have been visiting the Earth for thousands of years.
I would like to ask this audience at this Alien Con, how many of you have had missing time, an abduction experience, have encountered perhaps an entity in your room, or you have seen some kind of lights, craft that have left you with a feeling that you were seeing or experiencing something that was not human and fits into this category? How many?
Wow, that is an impressive show of hands. That's staggering.
The large numbers of allegedly abducted people in the audience stuns the panel. Equally impressive is the credibility of the stories.
Let me just say I'm a very logical person. He looked at me, he tipped his head down and he looked up. At that moment, his eyes went black, his nose started to turn almost beak-like, and I couldn't break the gaze.
I've had beings walk through the wall. I'm Rh negative, green-eyed. I do have some missing time.
We wake up and we're not in our bedroom anymore. We're laying on tables.
They pulled me up on the ship. They did surgery on me.
I had no idea of what they were doing. And I later found may have been extracting sperm.
But if alien abductions are really happening, what is their purpose? Are extraterrestrials simply examining the human species? Or is there another, even more profound agenda?
The reptilian who visits me on a regular basis. Apparently he realized I was infertile and he backed away.
As I began to do more and more deep research, eventually you come out at another layer. What are we? What are Homo sapiens sapien really? And then you get to my perspective today. The harvest of genetic material from this planet. And so one of our greatest questions is who walks around on our planet, looks human, but is not?
Could human abductions be part of a greater effort by extraterrestrials to hybridize the human species with alien DNA? Many ancient astronaut theorists insist that such an audacious notion is not only likely, but that evidence of it can be documented by means of regression therapy. Barbara Lamb has conducted nearly 2,000 regressions on people who believe they have been abducted by extraterrestrial beings. Most recently, she has been studying the case of California native Robert Fullington, who has, under hypnosis, revealed details of his numerous encounters with extraterrestrials over the course of the past 10 years.
I came to know hybrids several years ago, and since then, I've been conducting long interviews and have been doing regressions with them. And out of all that material, I have become convinced that they are indeed ET human hybrids living here on Earth.
I was 215 pounds, and I went down to 115 pounds. And doctors had no idea what was going on with me. I was starting to have experience with ETs. It's things like going to sleep and then becoming aware that something's happening. It's these little tiny blips of real clear ET interactions, and I have no idea what's going on.
A wonderful thing is that our subconscious part of our minds records everything that happens to us, even those things that we have not been consciously aware of.
On June 6th, 2019, Barbara conducted another regression session with Robert.
Okay, nice and comfortable now.
In an effort to find out not only why he had been abducted, but also the specific way in which he might have been genetically altered.
So now we're going to go into a nice state of deep relaxation. More and more deep, more and more relaxed.
People are laying in lines, and they're working on people. Like, I'm last in line to be worked on.
Now, are these people in line, are they lying down? Or
Yeah, it's like a bunch of tables in a row. I feel like there's something inserting into my stomach. They're extracting something. It's like they're collecting DNA from different people.
In the regression, it turned out that one extraterrestrial actually made an incision and took out DNA. Now that is something that has come across through my work. Some of them seem to be very scientific, and they want to understand how human bodies work and what our physiology is like. In many of the regressions I have done, it turns out that the ETs are creating hybrids for their own purposes.
Stephenville, Texas. On the cloudless evening of January 8, 2008, more than a dozen people, including a police officer and a private pilot, spot a luminous spherical object floating silently across the sky.
It was very intense, bright light, and they spanned a wide area.
It was so fast when it took off, you know, and it made not a sound.
Radar reports released by the FAA confirm an object without a transponder exactly where ground observers see the UFO.
The January 8, 2008 encounter of a giant UFO over Stephenville, Texas is particularly interesting. A number of people saw this giant glowing ball of light moving through the sky. It was picked up on the radar.
According to reports, for 2 hours, the UFO slowly moved some 70 miles across the Texas countryside. Military aircraft are in the air nearby. But curiously, radar records show that they initially made no overt action towards the unidentified object.
The first government report said that this was not anything except for some bizarre optical phenomena such as a reflection of light in the sky. But when you see people who have radar tracings, ground-based eyewitness reports, that's not a reflection. There's something going on here. Stephenville, Texas certainly implies that UFOs are a commonplace occurrence in America and the military stays out of the way.
In the United States, there are over 6,000 UFO sightings reported every year, more than any other country in the world. But why? Is there an explanation for such a high number of UFO sightings? Could aliens have a special interest in America? According to ancient astronaut theorists, not only are aliens watching over North America today, but in fact, they have been visiting us for hundreds and possibly even thousands of years. And they claim the evidence can be found in the strange sites, structures, and monuments that lie in every corner of the continent.
America is really a very mysterious place with all kinds of strange legends. So trying to put all of these things together in context shows us that we're living in a very unusual continent full of magic and mystery.
Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio, the Kivas at Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, Bighorn Medicine Wheel in Wyoming. Many Native American tribes say that at these ancient sites and countless others, entities that they call star beings came down from the sky to teach their ancestors.
To the Zuni people and other tribes, there's a spiritual connection with star beings. They're the ones that actually rule the universe or the world that we're on. If you look at the petroglyphs, there's a lot of references to those type of entities.
According to tribes like the Zuni and Hopi, stories of these otherworldly visitations exist not only in the oral traditions passed down from their ancestors, but also in petroglyphs carved into rock all across America. On the Zuni Pueblo in New Mexico, there are literally thousands of ancient carvings that most outsiders have never laid eyes on. And the Zuni claim that some of these petroglyphs depict visitations from star beings. The Apache Sitgraves National Forest, Arizona. November 5th, 1975. 22-year-old forestry worker Travis Walton is driving home after sundown with a group of co-workers when suddenly a strange light appears in the sky.
I noticed some little glimmers of light coming through the trees, and the light seemed to be coming from higher than where ground level would be. It was only when we got to where this light was crossing the road that we had an unobstructed view of the craft. It was a clearly visible, clearly defined metallic object, a disc hovering there, outlined against the sky. I threw open the door, thinking I'd get a closer look before it took off. As I got closer to it, the sound it was making, it was a sound you both heard and felt. And the crew said they could feel the vibration in the truck. They said it seemed like something was about to happen. And it was. That's when this energy hit me. The crew said that it was like I'd stepped on a landmine, like an explosion so violent that they thought it had killed me. When this beam of energy hit me, I felt like a physical blow, but with a sort of a tingling, sort of an electric shock sort of feeling at the same time. I don't know whether I came to soon after I was taken aboard, but I knew I was on some kind of an elevated gurney or operating table. I was looking straight into the face of this creature, and I just flipped out.
He sees these grey extraterrestrials around him, and he panics, and he begins to struggle very violently. And so those grey extraterrestrials leave that room, and then shortly afterwards, you have two human-looking extraterrestrials walking in.
In the case of these human-looking ones, I started to have serious misgivings that this was a rescue. And that's when they put this mask over my face, and I just blacked out real quickly.
Now, the suspicion here was that actually these weren't different aliens. These were the same aliens, but they were capable of shape-shifting into something else, specifically to calm him down.
Travis Walton's story has become one of the most famous alien abduction cases ever reported. But if true, was he abducted by beings that are able to shapeshift and mimic humans? While Travis Walton's account is extraordinary, it is not entirely unique.
There are many stories of these abductees who see these non-human looking extraterrestrials, these greys, who then are replaced by beings that look human. And this seems to be extraterrestrials using this shape-shifting ability to make it look as though human extraterrestrials are there.
In 2013, public policy polling released data that showed 12 million Americans believe that shape-shifting beings live amongst us.
One of the most intriguing conspiracies today is that of the shape-shifting aliens. The idea that perhaps there is a class of entities on our world today that is able to represent itself as humans at will. These extraterrestrials that are hidden from the rest of the normal human society around them.
There is a theory that there are aliens among us, aliens in human form. There's an advance guard, a fifth column, call it what you like, but the idea that perhaps as a prelude to a full-scale alien invasion, they infiltrate, they get their people into positions of power, and one could be walking right past you and you wouldn't know. People think of disclosure as being the archetypal landing on the White House lawn, spaceships in the sky. What if it's actually not that? What if aliens are already here?
Washington, D.C., April 2011. The FBI releases thousands of files as part of its online FBI vault. One particular file draws the attention of the media and independent researchers. The memo, dated March 22, 1950, is a briefing to FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover regarding informant information about 3 flying saucers that were recovered in New Mexico. Investigators immediately connect the memo to the infamous Roswell incident, a purported UFO crash that many people believe was covered up by the military in 1947. But this document is just the latest in a series of government files that have been released in recent years, suggesting there may be more to the Roswell crash than the public was told.
As an investigative reporter, I think what I am amazed by is how many leaked documents from the 1940s have actually come out into the world and lay out details about what really happened at Roswell. On July 4th, a rancher named Mac Brazel finds all kinds of strange silver debris. He knows he doesn't understand what he's walking through. He decides to go into Roswell and tell the sheriff, something has crashed on my ranch. Intel coming out of Roswell Army Airfield get assigned to go to the debris field. And these men are told that they are to pick up every single thing that is in the debris field on the Mac Brazel Ranch. Everything is to be picked up.
On July 8, 1947, the headline on the front page of the Roswell Daily Record reports that the military had retrieved a flying saucer. But the following day, the official story is suddenly changed to suggest it was nothing more than a failed weather balloon.
Roswell was the home of the 509th Bomb Group. This was the only atomic bomb-capable squadron anywhere in the world. These people were the best of the best. The idea that intelligence personnel at this base would mistake a weather balloon for something exotic is preposterous. So that, arguably, is the start of the UFO cover-up.
Weather balloon, swamp gas, meteorite, it doesn't matter. It's always something else but a UFO. The Roswell crash was covered up. The fact that they retracted the story of having captured a flying saucer, in my opinion, it was quick PR damage control.
World was told, nope, just a weather balloon. And for more than 30 years, that's where it was left, until witnesses started to surface, saying, no, it was actually an extraterrestrial craft. And people saw alien bodies.
Roswell researchers suggest a government-sanctioned bond of secrecy has prevented witnesses of the crash and retrieval from coming forward publicly. But many did choose to come forward later in life, including the first military officer to arrive at the Roswell crash site, Major Jesse Marcel. According to his grandson, Marcel privately shared many details of his experience with the family.
My grandfather, Major Jesse Marcel, he was head of intelligence for the 509th Bombing Group. As a kid, basically around the dinner table, we talked about Roswell. And through conversations, we learned that my grandfather was the lead investigator into what has become known as the Roswell incident. And when he was looking at debris, he couldn't make heads or tails or any sense out of what he was looking at. He had gathered some of the debris and decided to take it home with him. He kind of came to this idea that, he said, you know, whatever this stuff is, it's very significant, it's going to change humanity. And I want my family to be part of it. This is very important.
According to the family story, Major Marcel came home after his first visit to the site and laid the debris out on the floor of their kitchen. Some of the material was a strange, thin metal, similar to foil, except when crumpled up into a ball, it would bounce back to its flawless state.
There's a pretty famous picture of him holding a piece of debris, which is just a piece of foil, basically, and it was weather balloon material. He grudgingly went along with the story, held it. And if you take a look at that, you'll notice that he's not looking at the camera. He's looking up somebody barking him orders. He fell in line begrudgingly and did what he was supposed to do.
San Diego, California, November 14th, 2004. Two fighter pilots from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz investigate an unidentified aircraft off the coast of San Diego. They encounter a bright white, oval-shaped craft that resembles a massive Tic Tac. It's over 40 feet long, and it has no windshield or wings.
Oh my gosh, dude. Wow, look at flying.
The ship makes seemingly impossible stops and turns over the Pacific before accelerating away at thousands of miles per hour.
And this is David Fravor, skilled pilot. He said, I am looking at speeds, 90-degree angles, stopping. Any human inside of what I'm watching could not sustain life.
We have these videotapes. We can actually calculate the velocity of these objects. We can calculate the G-forces on these ships. So that's the sea change. It used to be that if you were a UFO believer, the burden of proof was on you to prove that you saw something in the sky. Now it's shifted. Now the establishment has to prove that it isn't a visitor from another planet.
For UFO researchers, the recent videos finally provide clear evidence, not only of what the government has been hiding for decades,
My gosh. Look at that thing, dude.
but the potential reason for the cover-up.
The technology is the key. If any single factor explains UFO secrecy, it's the aspiration to acquire extraterrestrial technology. The nation that first acquires that technology is going to be in game-changing territory.
This is truly an arms race. Whoever figures this out first wins. So any developed nation is looking right now to leap ahead with a technological innovation based upon the reverse engineering of what we're seeing in the skies, what our pilots are engaging in the skies, what Commander Fravor chased.
To many, the military's desire to monopolize extraterrestrial technology is reason enough to explain a cover-up. But some believe there are additional motives for government secrecy, while others point to a general culture of bureaucratic secrecy that pervades all of government.
Some disclosure advocates say that the reason why we haven't seen disclosure yet is because of economics. That you have an oil-based economy, and clearly the craft that we see in the skies are not running on oil. They're using advanced propulsion systems that would completely transform the economies of Earth if they're ever implemented.
So, yes, it would have a negative financial impact for the wealthiest people who own the oil in the ground. But it's not the whole story.
The government seems to be completely unaccountable to the American public. They may be accountable to their superiors in the Department of Defense or at NASA or others, but they rarely release anything they do know.
I think we're afraid to find out what these phenomena are. But governments in particular are afraid. And the reason for that, I think, is because the contract between governments and their people is that governments provide security, and then we provide loyalty to the government. If you even raise the issue of the possibility that UFOs are ETs, then that raises big questions about that contract, because it's clear that the government cannot provide security for us from these beings. And that would call into question, well, why should I be loyal to the government and everything else? It would undermine the sovereignty of the government, the sovereignty of the state.
But even with a growing number of more open-minded policies concerning both UFO reporting and disclosure, there are many who doubt that the U.S. military's penchant for secrecy will ever really allow full disclosure. They insist that America is far too afraid that extraterrestrial knowledge could fall into the hands of its territorial enemies to ever admit that aliens do exist. Pahoa, Hawaii, June 27, 2014. Hawaiian noble Robert Kalihi Hohomalu, affectionately known as Uncle Robert, opens the Star Visitor Sanctuary, a dedicated landing site for extraterrestrials visiting the Earth. Until his death in 2015, Uncle Robert stood at the forefront of his people's efforts to maintain contact with the star beings who they believe are the Hawaiian people's true ancestors. Today, his dream continues, thanks to the efforts of people like his nephew-in-law, Gary Hoffeld.
Uncle Robert was considered to be the Konahiki of the area there. And there were other chiefs in the area, but amongst those chiefs, they came to Uncle Robert for guidance, and he was included in every decision that made.
In June 2019, ancient astronaut theorists David Childress and Michael Sala arrive in Pahoa. They are eager to get a personal tour of the sanctuary and to hear a first-hand account of its history, creation, and mission.
Uncle Robert, he was the Prince of Peace, and he thought that, he called them our space brothers and sisters, he thought they could certainly come down, and perhaps we should greet them with some aloha instead of with guns pointed at them like they might get someplace else in the world.
So he was thinking that since the space visitors had originally come here to Hawaii, they would come back. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to come out into the area we call the Star Visitor Sanctuary?
This is the sanctuary here, right? Inside here?
Yeah.
Right here on the lava fields, huh?
Yeah.
Why did he choose this spot as the center for the Star Visitor Sanctuary, right here?
Well, the whole lava field creates a kind of new magnetic field out here, but this area was actually very special, and it could be a place for the star visitors to be welcomed, and that they would be given sanctuary because the Hawaii Kingdom claims sovereignty to this whole land, and which would be the first time in our modern history that a sovereign entity has granted extraterrestrials the right to land in peace and harmony.
To many Hawaiians, the Star Visitor Sanctuary serves as an homage to their otherworldly origins.
So since you started this Star Visitor Sanctuary, has there been some unusual activities or incidents here, or things you've seen?
The day we set this up, just before it got dark, several people were sitting out here, and up in the distance on the hill up here, they said they saw light orbs come out of the lava flow right there above the ridge, come across the sky and do a little bit of a hula, and then off into the distance shot off. And I mean, wow, probably 30 people were here seeing it, and the next day the lava started flowing again.
So they felt this was a sign from the star visitors, that they were glad the star visitor
Perhaps
sanctuary was
validation
here?
of what we're doing, perhaps coincidence. But I do believe that there's a portal hanging out in this particular area, opening to different places. And why not open here? Because we've opened a place to do it rather than someplace else.
Well, this is a pretty amazing spot and quite fascinating. Thanks for bringing me here, Michael, and thank you, Gary,
thank
for
you.
all this.
I'm glad to share.
Could it be that the beings the native Hawaiians refer to as their star ancestors have come here to Earth by means of a space-time portal? For many ancient astronaut theorists, the answer is yes. And for them, and for many Hawaiian natives, the Star Visitor Sanctuary represents an important step in their quest to make contact with extraterrestrial civilizations.
The idea that Hawaii is building a welcome center for extraterrestrials is incredible because their entire legends are based on so-called star lore, that their origins are in the stars. They themselves have said that they are a direct offspring of the extraterrestrials, and they are yearning for their return.
Among many Hawaiian groups, there's the belief that they were the original people. They were the kind of gateway for the gods to come and seed planet Earth with their progeny. And that's consistent with the idea that the Hawaiian Islands is a critical portal energy point for these extraterrestrials from distant star systems such as the Pleiades. It was a portal for the Pleiadians to send their people to the Earth.
These are ancient elders. These are ancient aliens. They was with us before, they are with us now, and will be for us forever. Till today, we're guided by them.
Albuquerque, New Mexico. Ancient astronaut theorist Giorgio Tsoukalos is at the home of Linda Moulton Howe as they continue to review the Majestic 12 Group Special Operation Manual. Linda explains what she finds most compelling about the top-secret document that surfaced in 1994.
This, to me, this is the best document that's been leaked. It's called Restricted Psalm 101, Majestic 12 Group. And all of us, when we first saw that title, Extraterrestrial Entities in Technology, Recovery and Disposal, one of the first things that everybody wanted to do was find out, okay, did they use this stamp in 1954 from the War Office? Turns out that they did all the way up into the 60s. And one of the more important pieces, I think, is as you go through here, they found in a government printing office, take a look at this. This is from a blow-up where they were doing a test. And look at this unauthorized, and look at what happens to that Z. It raises slightly.
Right.
So Bob went to the government printing office and found a guy named McCarter who was printing in the GPO in Washington, D.C. in 1954. And he took one look at this text and he said, this was done on a monotype. I used it, and the Z would collect dust, and that's why the Zs would print rays.
So different steps have been taken to authenticate this document.
Yes. And then when you start getting into what is in this book, you have the illustrations and sketches of 4 different categories of different craft, UFOs. And on this page, here are the discs. Here is a long cigar shape, which is described in this document as being up to 1,000 feet in diameter. And then this one, the ice cream cone, and this, the triangle. And there is a paragraph in here that implies that we are dealing with collaboration, that there must be some agreement between the United States and the extraterrestrials.
Really?
There is, on this page 17, it's under Chapter 5, and it goes into A, encounters initiated by the extraterrestrial biological entities. Possible contact may take place as a result of overtures by the entities themselves. In these instances, it is anticipated that encounters will take place at military installations or other obscure locations selected by mutual agreement.
By mutual? Wow.
1954.
According to the majestic 12 documents, the men who made up this group and were in communication with beings from other worlds included top scientists, government officials, and high-ranking military personnel.